Okay, awesome. Great. Okay, so let me see. How can I do this so you can see me? I guess I do it like this, like that. Okay. All right, cool. So, welcome. If you're here, it means that you are looking to get some tips and tools for dating so you don't have to keep putting yourself out there and being disappointed time and time again, or, entering toxic relationships. And this is going to be kind of a combination of some neuroscience, some nervous system healing stuff, some trauma stuff, and a formula for getting really intentional about how you're like showing up and stepping into the dating space so that you do not have to work so hard because Lord knows it is a crazy world out there when we are jumping into dating and the apps and all the things. And a lot of times it feels like we're throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that something sticks. So hopefully this will clarify some things. And this is a process that I actually have taken a lot of my clients through. So in my one-to-one work with my clients, we work on their complex trauma. And if you're not familiar, complex trauma or CPTSD usually occurs when you're a child and you're developing. And the kind of insidious thing about complex trauma is that your trauma is really woven into the fabric of your personality, your belief systems, how you see the world, how you see yourself. And all of that really translates into how we relate. And how we relate plays a really huge role in how we date, how we have friendships, how we relate to other human beings in general. So, what ends up happening is when they go on this journey and they're doing all of this work on themselves to understand their trauma, unpack it, work on their nervous system, work on their belief systems, they really transform into who their authentic self truly is outside of this traumatic experience that they've had growing up or the chaotic experience they've had growing up. And then they take that and they go into the dating space really well equipped to find a safe, loving, amazing partner. And I actually love this part of it because they take this formula and they find their person. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. And they were suggesting that I put something on and talk about it, not only because I've also utilized this and found really great success, but because they have. And I actually just back in June went to one of their weddings and it was beautiful. It's really awesome. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. Okay, so this is just a brief overview of the schedule. I sent you all a little workbook that you can do the exercises after we're done today. Each day you'll get another set of exercises to do after the call. And all of this is, like I said, going to help you hone in on what it is you're going to be doing when you get out there and you date, or how to show up in your relationships so that you can have the best experience possible. So today we're going to talk a little bit about your early experiences, kind of the wounds and the role models and how they shape why your preferences are the way that your preferences are when it comes to romantic partners. What's good about that? What do we want to keep around those experiences? And what do we kind of want to move away from or heal? We're also going to talk about, or we're going to do an ideal relationship visioning practice, which is kind of a meditative practice using, kind of the childlike experience of daydreaming. We don't tend to really daydream as adults and give ourselves that space to kind of, explore and live in the reality of what we're trying to call in. It helps us get very specific about what it is that we want. And so we're going to practice that today. And that's something that you can do over and over and over again as you get deeper into this process for yourself. We're also going to be walking through the ideal partner blueprints. We have someone else here. Okay, cool. We're going to be walking through the ideal partner blueprint, which is an exercise that is in the workbook that you can do for yourself at any time, as well as going over some red, yellow, green flag protocols. And all of these are going to be super helpful for, again, getting very, very specific about the partners that you're calling in, who it is that you really want, who's best for you, with an element of deep self-awareness as well about how you show up in these scenarios. And then Wednesday we'll do your love frequency activation, and Friday we'll do within the context of relationships, how to heal in those spaces. Okay, so this schedule is also in your workbook, so you can take a look at that whenever. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Hi, Lena, welcome. Okay, cool. So this is just going to be quickly a brief overview of why we are attracted to the relationships that we're attracted to. I know that for me personally, I didn't really understand how important my childhood experience was in terms of how it shaped who unconsciously I was drawn to in my relationships. And growing up, I had a narcissistic father who was very emotionally volatile, angry, abusive, mentally unstable in many ways, and very self-involved. Obviously, he was a narcissist. And then I had a mom who was really working all the time, and she loved me and we're very, very close. But because of her having to take care of both me and my father, because my father didn't work, she was absent. And so I really filled in certain roles in the family to keep the peace, to support my mom as a partner, not a child. And I was parentified really young. And then, as I grew up, I found myself in similar roles and repeating similar toxic cycles in my romantic relationships and wondering, well, like, okay, I'm aware that this is how I grew up. I'm aware that these are the wounds that I experienced, and I really don't want to be in a relationship like that. But for some reason, like, I'm drawn to these kinds of similar dynamics. And unpacking that takes time, but awareness around it is the first step. And then moving through healing that conditioning and that programming in your nervous system and in your brain is kind of the secondary step to breaking those cycles. So now we're going to kind of talk about awareness around this stuff. So when you are a child, right, from the ages of 0 to around 7 or 8 years old, your brain is in what's called a theta brainwave state primarily. It's mostly theta brainwaves that are active. Theta brainwaves are what are associated with a hypnosis or a hypnotic state. So you don't necessarily have at that age a sense of self. You don't necessarily have like a full idea of a full personality, a full idea of who you are, awareness, like that. All of those things kind of kick in as you get older, because those things exist in what's called your prefrontal cortex, which is your neocortex, which is kind of here in the front of your head, the front of your brain. That's your logical brain. That's your thinking brain. That is your evolved brain. But we're born with kind of what's most active is our primitive brain, our primal brain, our animal brain. And it's very sensitive. And we are in this state of hypnosis. So we're really sponges soaking in every single thing we're experiencing at every single moment that we're alive. And from that, we're creating a kind of blueprint for how we see the world, based on this little model that we have at home, this kind of microcosm. Our home was like our first example of, oh, this is the way the world works. And we didn't have this like kind of idea that, oh, other houses are different, or other families are different, or the world can be whatever we want it to be. It was mostly like we're learning how the world works, what our value is, what our place is in the world, from the experiences we have with our primary caregivers. So this could be your parents, if you were raised by your parents, single parent, both parents. It could be your grandparents. It could be your adoptive parents. It could be whoever you were around really the most, who were the primary people who took care of you. Those are the people who essentially will influence you and become the models for this. So when you are in this theta brainwave state, you don't question anything. You don't question or judge anything. You kind of accept everything to be the truth. So if you see your parents and they are a really like solid, great team, and you see that they're empathic and loving towards one another, and they listen and they support each other, that's kind, you take that and you go, oh, that's how all relationships should be. That's how the world is. And so you seek, as you get older, similar dynamics in your relationship. You seek a partner like what you saw growing up. But if you have a house, like, I don't know if you did, but I did, where the parents, there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of discord, there was a parent who was abusive, there was a parent who really was selfless and kind of gave up their identity to take care of everybody else. I mean, that's also the dynamic that then you try to recreate unconsciously in your adult relationships. So, really looking back, a big part of the way we show up and the partners that we choose and the way we show up in our relationships and in the dating space is based on what we're familiar with. So if you look back at your parents' relationship or the relationship between your primary caregivers, and you analyze that for yourself and you ask yourself, well, what was that relationship like? And what was that like to witness that? I bet you 99% of the time you can draw parallels between your parents or one parent and the relationships that you've had. So if you had parents that fought a lot, maybe you fight a lot in your relationships. You pick partners that are really chaotic. If you had a parent who was a narcissist, maybe a lot of your partners end up becoming narcissists as well, or they are, even if you think that they are, and it kind of comes out at a certain point, or they have traits of narcissism. If you have parents where there was any kind of physical, emotional abuse, substance abuse, addiction, you'll find those themes carry over into your adult relationships and to who you choose. You feel safer or more comfortable around people like that because you're familiar with it. That's what you grew up with. That's what you know. And so there's a kind of disconnect between that primal reptilian part of our brain that we grew up with and the like intellectual kind of thinking brain that developed as adults. It's the difference is like when you say to yourself, oh, I know that I shouldn't be in this relationship, or I know that this is not a good person for me. That's your thinking brain. But then you're drawn still to be with this person. You can't get out of the relationship. You're like, you want to be with the chaos. You want to be in this dynamic. That's your reptilian brain. That's your old programming that's going, well, yeah, we may know this consciously, but we're still really drawn to it. And we're still finding ourselves attracted to these kinds of cycles and these partners. So unpacking that and being able to reprogram that is going to be key in finding a partner that's going to be really, really good for you. So it's really important to look back at your childhood, to analyze like the relationship that your parents had to each other and how they related to you, and ask yourself, what are the parallels that I can draw between those experiences and the experiences I have with my partners when I date, with my long-term partners that I've had in long-term relationships, and with the people that I kind of choose to engage with, and kind of look at that for yourself. If you played a role as a child, if you were the peacekeeper for your family, right? Like it's really important to know, what were those roles? Were you the peacekeeper? Were you the sick child, right? In psychology, we use this term like, not necessarily like you were physically ill all the time, but that something was wrong. And that was a way to bring your parents together because they had to take care of you if something was wrong. Right. And that's how you stopped the fighting, was that you became the problem or you became the issue. So they had to focus on you and not fight with each other. Were you the partner for one of your parents? Like, did you hold emotional space for your mom or your dad or whoever it is? Were you their child? Like, where you got to be free to be a kid, or were you an adult at a really early age, taking care of your siblings, maybe, or taking care of your parents in some kind of way? All of those things are going to play into who we choose and how the roles that we play in our romantic relationships. And if you find yourself engaging with partners that you always have to take care of emotionally, but they don't show up for you in that same way, or you're attracted to people who don't show up for you in that way, like it most likely is because as a kid, you also played that role. So looking at the roles that you played as a child, really, really important. And in our early childhood experiences, we build belief systems about ourselves, our worth, and what love means. Basically, when you're born, you have like no idea about anything. Okay. And so when you're a kid, you're like, through experience and your relationships, you're learning to construct an idea of what, like I mentioned earlier, like what is the world? Like, how does the world work? Like, how do people work? How do I receive love? That's the most important thing, is how do I get my needs met and how do I receive love in the world? And based on those experiences that you have growing up, you learn, okay, this is how I get love. I either have to be quiet, or I have to be, I have to perform. I have to get straight A's. I have to be the best at everything. I can't make mistakes. That's how I get love and attention. And so that carries on. That becomes the blueprint for how you see yourself. I'm only worthy when I perform. I'm only worthy when I do well. I'm only worthy when I'm taking care of somebody else. Okay. So your belief systems that are formed at this early age shape how you will value yourself, how you will value others, see the world. And also, it'll define for you, what does love mean? What does love feel like? And what do I need to do to be loved? And when I say like it defines what does love feel like, it's this idea that like, if you could be authentically yourself as a kid and you were loved unconditionally, and you can make mistakes and you could fuck up and you can be messy and you can, whatever, and you were still loved for yourself, you learn that love means being, I could be authentically me and be safe to be loved and I don't have to do anything. But if you, like I said, were, only getting love when you were performing some kind of task, like getting those good grades or being impressive for your parents to be able to say that you're impressive to other people, or you had to be sick or a problem and that's how you finally got that attention that you needed, you're going to learn that love means I need to be sick. Love means I need to take care of somebody else. Love is conditional. And that's really powerful, because then we walk into these adult relationships and we go, okay, that's what love means. Love means self-sacrifice. Love means perfectionism. Love means pain sometimes, right? Love means chaos, and even if you like, I'm like 30, I'm going to be 35 like next week, a week from Saturday. So I guess like 2 weeks. And I grew up with all those movies, like The Notebook and like Titanic and like all of these dramas that love, like, because society and culture can condition you too, where love meant fighting for your love. Love meant chaos. Love meant, like trauma. And I remember like, oh, it's not love unless we're fighting hard for it. And it's not love unless, we're like, so passionate and like whatever. And then I realized like, oh, that's like not healthy. And that's not going to make me happy. So yeah, look at all of this stuff, because it's going to really paint a picture of like, well, what's my patterning and what's my programming around love and being in relationship to another person, whether it's friends or romantic. So moving down, we have a little kind of area. Let's talk about kind of complex trauma and unhealed wounds. It doesn't have to be trauma. It could just be like wounds that you experienced in your relationships early on. Could be, in your, family relationships, could be even going to school, getting bullied a lot. That was something I experienced. That also has a profound effect on how you show up in your adult relationships. So why are these things important to understand? If you find yourself like repeating toxic cycles, like getting involved with people who do not treat you well, who, are self-involved, who are abusive, like who are really toxic in some way or another, that is not your fault. And I want to be really, really clear about that. That is not your fault. It is not something to feel ashamed about. It also isn't everybody. We tend to think, oh, I've experienced these relationships that are so unhappy and, where I really get left behind and I'm not loved and I'm like, hurt and like abandoned or cheated on or whatever over and over again. We tend to blame ourselves and we tend to think that these are the only relationships that exist. Everybody's toxic. Everybody's going to hurt me. That sucks. Both of those things are not true. It's just that we have, as human beings, our nervous system and our primal reptilian brain, or our unconscious, seeks what's familiar. It's the idea of better like the devil we know than the devil we don't. So even though we may consciously really want to be in a happy, healthy relationship, we still are attracted to the toxicity, because deep down, that's what we know is familiar. We know how to handle that. We know how to ride that wave. We know what to do with that. I mean, for myself, I was like, what the fuck do I do with like a healthy, stable person? Like that makes me uncomfortable. Like I need someone who like I can fight with, or I need someone who, operates a certain way because I know how to maneuver that. But when it comes to like someone who isn't that and they're totally healthy and they have like it's like a calm thing, I'm like, well, shit, now I'm uncomfortable because I don't know what to do with this. Um, so it's not your fault. You're not choosing consciously terrible partners. There's an unconscious drive to seek what's familiar. And if we're looking back at our childhood and what's familiar is this chaos or abuse or neglect or abandonment, um, we're gonna constantly, under our level of awareness, we're gonna be attracted to the same things because it's what's familiar. And what's familiar, our body and our brain equate with safety and survival. And our number one prerogative, our priority when it comes to being a human being, as we are all animals, we're talking evolutionary biology here. Our only goal that our brain and our body have are to keep us alive and keep us surviving so we can reproduce and hopefully keep the human species going. And that's the same thing across the board for all animals. So we need to understand that, our nervous system and our brain, the two things that really drive our thoughts, our feelings, and our choices, until we get a handle on them, they're very animalistic, and they're going to operate under the kind of programming of what's going to keep us alive, not what's going to make us happy. That's not, they don't care about that. They care about, can I wake up another day and keep the human race going, keep the human species going? So understanding that about yourself, you can release any shame or any, judgment around maybe the people that you've gotten involved with in the past, or maybe the ways we've self-sabotaged good relationships, and things like that, because we're just seeking baseline. We're seeking what's familiar because it's safe. And that is an unconscious process that happens kind of underneath your level of awareness. And this is where nervous system healing and subconscious reprogramming, around, reprogramming your belief systems and how your brain works, is so, so important, because then you start training yourself to actually seek not what's familiar, if it's not working for you, but to seek what is actually going to be safe, what's actually going to be healthy, what's actually going to make you happy. And all of those things can be programmed and changed. So we're all like very, very like complicated computers, but at the same time, very primitive computers, if that makes sense. So chaos, rejection, abandonment, abuse wounds, and attachment dysfunction. So I kind of touched on this, but essentially, when we experience these kinds of things, the chaos, the rejection, the abandonment, the abuse, as children, we have our dysfunction, attachment issues. We tend to not be able to be our authentic selves with other people. We tend to put a mask on, to play a role, to shift or change ourselves in some way to be loved. We tolerate bullshit. We tolerate a lot of shit from people. And we tolerate chaos, and we tolerate pain from people, whether it's romantic or other relationships, because we are afraid of experiencing these wounds again. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be abused. We don't want to be abandoned or neglected. And so we end up kind of acting in ways that are not in alignment with our authentic selves and what actually is going to be healthy. So really good to know what these wounds are for yourself. And we'll be talking more about those in the third session, like working out shadow work around what are my wounds and what are the things that are getting in the way. So we'll dive more deeply into that kind of on Friday. Nervous system conditioning, understanding how your nervous system was shaped to feel safe around chaos is really important. So why, like we talked about the repeating toxic cycles above, we're seeking what's familiar. Our nervous system conditioning, if you were conditioned around chaos, if you were conditioned around, toxic relationships and behaviors, your nervous system is going to feel safe around that, right? It's going to feel comfortable around that. And actually, you'll feel yourself very uncomfortable around safe relationships. You'll be waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time. You'll be constantly questioning whether they really like you or not. And in those moments, you end up kind of sabotaging yourself. You'll create your own chaos because your nervous system is like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't feel safe with this. So I need to create something that's going to feel familiar. So conditioning your nervous system to heal, first of all, and regulate, and then feel safe around safe people and to trust those attachments is like a big part of the work in terms of dating and staying and finding with someone who's going to be a good partner for you. We talk about that subconscious programming, essentially like we repeat these toxic cycles and they make what's called synaptic connections in our brain stronger, which makes us keep seeking these repeated people, these repeated experiences, or these repeated similar dynamics in relationships over and over and over again. Every time that you make a decision or make a choice, you are firing a connection in your brain to build that part of your brain. You're actually building brain matter. You're growing your brain. And through these choices that you're making based on your feelings and your thoughts, you are building your brain kind of like going to the gym to have this dominant response of like the actions that you take, right? So let's say you grew up with I'll use myself as an example. Let's say that you grew up with, very angry, emotionally unstable, narcissistic parents. You have so much experience around that you have a lot of connections. You've worked that muscle around being around that kind of person, around learning how to maneuver that person, feeling, finding ways to be safe around that person, to get love from that person. And that is going to then, because it's a dominant kind of muscle you've been working, it's going to kind of play into how it repeats itself like throughout your life. So you're going to be drawn again towards a similar dynamic with your romantic partners. You're going to be drawn towards similar people with similar personalities, and people who will make you feel the same kind of way that you felt as a child. So when you have these synaptic connections and they're strong, it's like about almost reprogramming to make new synaptic connections to feel safe and comfortable around safe people, good people. So, if you're somebody who always looks for the bad boys or the bad girls, the kind of edgier people, and they all turn out to be kind of crazy or something like that, it's probably because that's what's familiar to you. And your synaptic connections are really strong around choosing that kind of person. And we need to build other ones that are stronger through things like meditation, through things like affirmations, mindfulness practices, to help you start to choose someone else. And every time you make a different choice, you're building a different synaptic connection. When you choose the same over and over again, you're reworking that muscle, you're making it stronger. When you choose something different, something better, it may feel uncomfortable, it may feel new, it may not be something that you're running towards at first, but you're starting to build those synaptic connections in your brain that are going to start to then become the stronger muscle. And the muscle of dysfunction will kind of disappear because our brain will shed those connections. And then we're left with the healthy connections that help us find those healthy people. And on Wednesday, we'll be working on practices to actually work on the nervous system and your brain in this way. When we have complex trauma and unhealed wounds, we tend to look for saviors in our partners or someone who will complete us. That's never a good thing. You give your power away. We tend to have boundary issues. So you might have no boundaries at all and have a really hard time understanding how to hold a boundary, how to set a boundary, what even is a boundary. Or you might go the other way where you're there's a huge wall and you don't let anybody in. There's a huge wall and you, like, anytime anybody does one thing that maybe is triggering or wounding or activates those old wounds, you cut them off forever. There's no communication, there's no working through it. It's very rigid. You want to find something somewhere in the middle, right? And that is where the sweet spot is for boundaries, but it's hard to do if you have that early childhood experience that isn't so great. When we have, again, complex trauma and unhealed wounds in relationships, they come up as triggers. right? We're triggered by behavior, we're triggered by certain situations and dynamics. And when we're triggered, we don't make conscious decisions. We're in fight or flight, or we're completely shut down. And we need to be able to work through those to have good communication, to have healthy relationships. We tend to lack confidence. We don't have a lot of self-empowerment because we're disappointed and hurt over and over again. And we tend to not be able to communicate very well, what we need, what we want, and stick with it. So when we are looking at this holistically, when we're going into the dating space today, when we are looking at the apps, when we are going on our dates and we're getting to know people, when we're dating for more than just a few dates, and or we have a long-term relationship and it's not making you happy, and there's somebody, and you just find yourself in these toxic cycles, or you find yourself not able to meet somebody, you know, first look at what your programming is. Look at how you grew up. Look at who your parents were, how they made you feel. What did you witness in their relationship? What wounds and roles do you like, what wounds do you have, and what roles have you played to receive love? What does love mean for you? All of this is like awareness that's going to help you then maybe shift the way you approach the dating scene. You know, instead of going after the same kinds of people, or allowing your instinct, quote unquote, or your unconscious programming to drive you back into the same kinds of situations and relationships, or to push people away, or whatever it might be. Maybe now we make a different choice, right? We give the person who looks like a dork a chance. We give the person who looks boring a shot. I don't know. You date outside of your normal preferences. You give yourself something new, a new experience. And maybe through that, you know, you find who you're actually meant to be with. So look at all of this stuff. It's really, really important. All right. And any questions or thoughts, just go ahead and drop them in the chat. We're going to do a little practice for ideal partner visioning, and it's a little meditation. So we'll do that in just a second. So I'll kind of pause here for any questions or any reflections, anything you want to share before we dive in. But it's all very like kind of, there's a lot of information there. So it's okay if you don't have anything to say, just soaking it in. Okay, so for this next practice, we'll take about 5 to 7 minutes. It'll be kind of quick, but will be something that you can practice for longer if you have the time. I definitely recommend like doing this at least a couple of times a week if you are out there dating, if you're putting yourself, you know, in the dating space, and you're looking to attract your ideal partner. And this is called an ideal partner visioning practice. So if you have like a space where you can comfortably sit down, or you can lie down, whatever, you know, helps you get more relaxed. I'm going to lead you through a little meditation to help you figure out, you know, what it is that you envision for yourself and your ideal partnership. Awesome, Lena. Yay. I love this practice. We tend to not, like I said in the beginning, we tend to kind of stop playing and stop daydreaming as children. I have a long list. I love that. Yeah, we tend to stop like daydreaming when we become adults, because we feel like it's such a childish practice, or it's like a waste of time. But we really need to engage in our daydreaming, in our visualization, in our kind of playfulness of like, well, what if, like the creative kind of energy when we're dating, because we can really use that to hone in on what it is that subconsciously we really want from our relationship or a partnership. So go ahead and find a comfortable seat, find a nice spot lying down, and we'll just dive in. Okay. So I just want you to start by taking a really nice deep breath in through the nose, filling the belly with air as much as you can. And then you're going to hold it for a second at the top and give yourself a nice long exhale through the mouth. Really letting out all of the air from your belly. And then pause at the bottom before repeating again. Nice long inhale through the nose. Focusing on bringing that breath to the low part of your belly, right underneath your belly button. And then a nice long exhale through the mouth. One more time. Let's breathe in through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Really letting go of all the stress, any tension in the body. Now just bringing it back to a natural breathing rhythm that feels good for you. Allowing your body to breathe however it wants to. Really focusing on these nice, soft, deep belly breaths. And maybe bringing your awareness to your face and softening your forehead, relaxing your brow, letting your eyelids get nice and heavy. Maybe softening the cheeks, relax the jaw, softening the lips. And let's unstick our tongue from the roof of our mouth and just let it hang and drop to the bottom. Really releasing any and all tension from your face, feeling the stress melting away. And then maybe inviting your neck to soften. Let's drop the shoulders and relax the shoulders in the back. And keeping with those nice relaxing breaths, let's soften the chest. Feeling that chest expanding and opening. And soften the belly. Let it hang. Relaxing the hips and the buttocks. Let's let your arms get nice and heavy, your hands softening. Softening the thighs. Relax the calves. And soften the arches of your feet and your toes. Just letting your body, your muscles melt and soften. Now, as you feel yourself kind of floating into a space of consciousness, I want you to imagine yourself in a home. Could be anybody's house, your house, a dream house. I want you to imagine yourself laying in bed, really comfortable. You have the nice warm sheets and the blanket on top of you. You feel rested and safe. There's nowhere to be, nowhere to rush off to. You can just relax. I want you to imagine that this is your home that you share with your partner. And you're waking up to another joyous day in love. And in your vision, as you slowly wake up, I want you to open your eyes in your vision and explore this space. Maybe you gently get out of bed and feel your feet on the floor. Maybe there's sunshine coming in through the windows. Can you see the furniture in the room? And just explore the space. Maybe there's photographs, maybe there's objects you can touch and look at. And as you're walking around, you hear some noise coming from downstairs in the kitchen. And you smell food and you realize that your partner's cooking you breakfast. And I want you to gently take yourself through the room and down the stairs to be with your partner. And then you see them in front of you. And I want you to notice, what do they look like? What are they wearing or not wearing? What is the expression that they have on their face when they see you? What does their hair look like? What color is their eyes? I want you to go ahead and have an interaction with them, talk with them, notice how they respond to you, and just take a moment here to be with your partner. Maybe there's some physical touch or contact. How are they showing you love? How are they connecting with you? How do they make you feel? Maybe there's some joy, some playfulness. But all in all, there's a deep and profound sense that you are so safe and you're so loved for being exactly who you are. And you know you can visit your dream house and your dream partner anytime. You can also visit them in any kind of environment or space that you'd like. And interact with them, be in their energy. But just know that this is waiting for you. This is real for you. And it's on its way. Now taking a nice deep breath in, breathing in all of the love and healing energy of this experience, feeling the hope and the possibility flowing through your body, knowing for sure in your body and in your mind that this exists and is there for you, releasing the breath. And inviting in a sense of trust. Trust that this is on its way. Take another deep breath in, filling the belly with air. And a nice long exhale through the mouth. And then when you're ready, you can gently wiggle your fingers and your toes. And maybe bring your eyelids and flutter them open and come back into the space. So this practice is kind of the practice that we just did is just like a little visualization and a little bit of embodiment. The idea is that when we're calling in our ideal relationship or our ideal partner, and we don't necessarily know exactly who they are, we are going to do written exercises that we'll look at in a second, but we also take a time to kind of play in this imaginary world where we already have them. And when we can kind of play around and imagine what our relationship would be like with them by imagining situations that we would have, maybe going to the grocery store or just waking up on a morning in our home, or going to the movies or dinner with friends, or just anything that you would normally do with your partner. We can start to play in these spaces and create these experiences. Our brain starts to build those synaptic connections and starts to familiarize itself and start to feel safe around that kind of partnership, that kind of relationship. So it's really starting to program your brain to now start seeking this kind of partner out without you having to consciously do anything, because we can prime our brain. Oh, Lena, I didn't want to wake up. I know it's so fun to play in spaces. So you can like prime your brain and create a sense of groundedness and safety in the body that allow you to open up to this world that you're creating for yourself and this person that you're calling in. So as you're moving through your days and you're going through this dating experience, which can be very like a roller coaster, it's like you want to, this is almost like manifestation, right? Um, Using science, and it's like we're creating safety in the body, and then we're through relaxation, and then we're taking that relaxed body and mind and going into this kind of visioning where we're playing in this space of being with our ideal person, so we can start to see, what does that relationship feel like, what does that look like, who does this person look like physically, how do they make us feel, what is that dynamic that we really crave, and then we kind of have more of a direction of what we're actually looking for when we are out there and meeting people. So just to round off the last little bit, these are going to be the exercises that you're going to do in your notebook, in the little workbook that I sent out in the email. All of these questions are in the workbook, so you don't have to copy them. The first thing is your ideal partner blueprint. So getting super, super fucking specific about who is this person that I want. You know, when we go into the grocery store, okay, like I should say, like, this is not every time for me, but like when I go into the grocery store, I like, you have a list, right? You have a list of the things that you want. You want rice, you want beans, you want chicken, you want, sauce, you want whatever it is that you're getting. You have your list, you go to the store, you go to the shelf, you pick the things off the shelf, you go to the thing, you check out, you take the things home, and that's it, right? So, I mean, sometimes you go to the store with no plan, but that's not what we're talking about here. But it's kind of the same thing. When you are out shopping for your partner, you want to have a list of what are you freaking looking for, because otherwise it's like going into the store with no plan, and then you come out with all kinds of things that don't match, and you're like, what the hell am I going to make with all these random ingredients that have nothing to do with each other? And then you're trying to put it together into something that ends up tasting not great, or it's not what you want. So it's not about finding someone who's going to love you. It's not about dating, is not about finding someone that you can tolerate, or that you can be in a relationship with and it'll be okay. It's about really getting specific for yourself about what are you looking for from a partner, from a person. And like, to be specific means that it's going to save you a lot of time. So when you're looking at people and you're talking to people and they don't align with this list that you have created, this blueprint, then you can decide for yourself, well, are they far enough away from this blueprint that I really want, that I don't want to explore this, and I can kind of like let this go and keep going and really invest my time and energy in somebody who really matches this blueprint? Or like, do I want to like go, or do they match this blueprint and I really want to like invest my time and space here? The things that we can't get back are time and energy, in terms of like what you're giving in the dating space when you're out there meeting people. So it's not about just like matching with someone on Bumble and then like going out on a date and like not really looking at, do they meet the criteria of the person I want to be with? So you're going to journal about all of these things, and get really specific about your shopping list when it comes to a person. And, obviously we may not find somebody who meets 100% of this criteria, but if you can meet somebody who's like 80% of the criteria, you're in really good shape. Okay. So, these are the questions that you're going to journal about when you are thinking about your ideal partner, when you're playing with that envisionment, the visioning exercise. Like, try and see for yourself, like, how do they view, or what are their values when they come to these different areas? What do they think about family? What are their values when it comes to family? The family that they have, do they have a relationship with them? If it's a healthy family, do they have a relationship with their family? What is the quality of their relationship that they have with their family? How do they see the family they want to create? Do they want to have kids? Do they not want to have kids? Does that align with what you want? So what are their values around family? What's important to them when it comes to finances? Finances are like the make or break of like a lot of relationships. So what kind of financial situation do you want your partner to be in? Do you want them to be employed? Do you want them to make a certain amount of money? Do you want them to, have savings? Do you want them to value certain things about finances? How they split it, how they split things, or don't, or take care of things, or how you guys are going to do finances together? What does that look like? How do they view, or what are their values around relationships, both romantic and friendship wise? Like, what's important to them when it comes to relationships? What's important to them when it comes to themselves? So when it comes to self-awareness and growth and accountability, what's important to them in that realm? Are they working on themselves? Have they been to therapy? Do they know what their wounds are? Do they know what their triggers are? Are they accountable for themselves, or do they blame everybody else for everything? Right? What's important to them when it comes to spirituality and religion? A big one. What's important to them when it comes to career? What's important when it comes to lifestyle? That includes, like, what do they like? What are their habits? What are their views on health and travel? Is that something they prioritize? How do they present themselves? Where do they prioritize spending their time and their money? That's going to be really important, because if it's something that is really not in alignment with how you like to live your life, you have big lifestyle differences, then you don't have to shift to meet their lifestyle. If you're somebody who likes to like rot in bed on Sundays, and they're the kind of person that literally could never imagine doing that, that may not be like a kind of dynamic that you want to be in, where, you want to relax and like they're like always on the go. And lifestyle is important. What's important when it comes to hobbies and passions? What kind of hobbies do they have? What are they excited about? And what is their vision of their life? Like, what kind of life do they want to have? What's the goal for their life vision as they grow older? And are these things that are in alignment with you? Quick heads up, we're probably going to go over by like 5-10 minutes. So if you have to run, this is recorded, no worries. But if not, stick around and we'll just go through these real quick so you know what you're doing. The other questions: where do I want them to be in terms of their self-healing, self-awareness, and self-growth? Really important. How do I want to feel around them? How would I like them to treat me or make me feel in the relationship? Looking at past relationships, what elements worked for me and what did not. Really important to take all of your relationships as data points. No relationship is all good or all bad. There are things that worked and that were good and that you liked and that, you want to take with you when you look for your new partner. And there are things that really you're like, oh my God, I never want to experience that again. Great. Let's get clear. What are the things we want? What are the things that did not work? And let's like make sure we're not falling into that again. Yeah, I also, oh, that's a good idea, Lena, doing this list from your partner's perspective. Yeah. Really interesting. Tell me how that goes. I'm curious. That's a good practice. And then the last questions are: how does your ideal partner handle conflict, difficulties, and disappointments? Really, really important, because you're going to have conflict, you're going to have difficulties and disappointments in your relationship, with life in general. How do they handle it? Do they shut down? Do they avoid? Do they face it and kind of do their best? Are they open to shifting and adjusting? All of that is important to know. How does your partner show you love? What are the actions that they take to help you feel seen, heard, safe, and valued? Really important. How do they show you love in a way that you feel it? Really, because everybody does it. We all have different love languages. We all have different things that we need. So how do you need your partner to behave to make sure that you feel seen, heard, safe, and valued? And then, like we talked about in the beginning, looking at your childhood, what kind of characteristics, qualities, and relationship dynamics are you unconsciously attracted to? So you can start becoming aware of those patterns or cycles, and which ones are healthy and which ones are not. And then the last thing is red, yellow, and green flags. So you're going to make 3 lists: a list of red flags, a list of yellow flags, and a list of green flags. And this is kind of what you want to look for. You may want to take a screenshot of this, because I did not do this. I didn't do the breakdown in your workbook. So if you want to take like a little screenshot of these questions, go ahead. Or not questions, but like bullet points, go ahead, because they'll help you with the journaling practice. So just to quickly touch on it, red flags are absolute non-negotiables, deal breakers, and abusive behaviors. So red flags are like your hard line, right? Like things that you absolutely are not flexible on when it comes to a partner. and things that you are just going to walk away from, no questions asked. This is just not going to work for you. So red flags, I 100%, I put abusive behaviors in there because like 100% red flag, walk away. That's somebody who screams at you, yells at you, gaslights you, calls you names, hits you or touches you in an invasive, abusive way, assaults you in any way, anything like that degrades you, like just walk away. You pick a partner, not a project. Okay. You don't have to heal anybody's wounds. You're not here to heal somebody's stuff. Any abusive behavior is red flag. And then any other non-negotiables. I have a friend who is she's in her late 50s and she's dating, and a lot of men that are in her age range, they have kids. She's not a kid person. Non-negotiable for her is kids. She doesn't want to date somebody who has kids. She just knows it's not going to be for her. Might be for someone else, not for her. So red flags, be really clear about what are those things that you're just definitely not interested in. Yellow flags are kind of in the middle. They're concerns, but they're not total deal breakers. So these are things that, you look for when you start to date, or that you already know from past relationships, that are things that you're not like in love with, things that you don't like really want in a partner, things like that, but things that also could be worked through with communication, could be worked through with some boundary setting. Depends on the person, kind of a situation, because if they're willing to adjust themselves or grow or take responsibility for certain elements of their own healing and your needs, like showing up for you, then maybe they're not yellow flags. They go into, it's a green flag. It's okay. What's important is looking for repeated patterns and how they make you feel, right? So if you have somebody and the yellow flag is like you're dating them and they like say something where they criticize maybe something about you, your outfit, your choices, whatever that might be. It could be you caught them on a bad day. So it's not like they screamed at you, yelled at you, and called you names, but they said something that was kind of degrading or kind of not, nice, didn't make you feel good. And now it's like, okay, that's a yellow flag. Now, is this something that they're going to do regularly as you spend time with them? Do you notice that they repeat this pattern of putting you down? Or is it like kind of they're having a shitty day and they kind of fucked up and took it out on you, and you bring it up to them and they apologize and they go, you know what, I'm really sorry. I totally did that. Like, I'm going to be more careful about that next time. If it's the latter, then you keep an eye on it, but it's not something you need to just rigid and cut them off immediately, right? It's more like, okay, this is something I'm going to keep an eye on. It's a concern. Didn't love it. But let's see what happens as time goes on, if this continues or if, it doesn't. So that's kind of the yellow flag. And also, where on the priority list does this fall? Like, it could be stupid things, right? It could just be like, oh my God, like, this person doesn't wash the dishes like every night, and I'm a kind of person who puts the dishes in the dishwasher every night, and like it drives me bananas. Okay, but where on the priority list does this fall, the dishes, right? Is this something that literally is like make or break the relationship? It's going to drive you up the wall and you cannot stand it and that's it? Or is it like, okay, I'm willing to kind of let this be this person's quirk because they love me and they're amazing in all these other ways. So understanding where on the priority list things fall is important. And then green flags. These are, I say full body fuck yes. The things that you love, the things that you absolutely need, the things that you want and that you really, 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 really want to have in your relationship, want to have from a partner. Includes like safe, loving behavior, healthy conflict resolution and communication, empathy, compassion, these are things that allow your body and mind to feel grounded and safe and present. And things that allow you, aspects or characteristics that allow you to be your authentic self. Like, you want somebody that maybe finds you entertaining or likes being around you. Then also being mindful of trauma and conditioning, like we talked about in the beginning. Is this a green flag because it actually is a green flag? Or is this a green flag because it's familiar and safe and feels exciting and it's chaotic and that's what I'm used to? So always being aware, is the green flag really a healthy, good thing? Or is it something that I'm falling back into old patterns and it's being painted as a green flag, but it's really like a yellow or a red? Okay, so you're going to make those lists. You're going to do your blueprint and you're also going to do your red, yellow, green flags. And these are going to be kind of the things that put it up on your wall, put it somewhere you can see them. So like literally every single day, you're programming your brain to go, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. And it's going to then seek that out for you when you're out there dating, and also allow you to go, okay, not for me. You know, I'm going to walk away and not give this more time and energy than it deserves, because it's not about finding someone who is going to love you. You also have to you also have to like go into it with this idea that you're not looking for any relationship, you're looking for the relationship. And the more specific you are, and the more you unapologetically go after the things that you want, the faster they're going to come into your life, you know? So it puts you in a state of empowerment versus disempowerment. Okay, so that's kind of our little chat for today. Thank you for sticking around for the ending. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, or you can DM me on Instagram. I'm so glad we got to spend time together. And then Wednesday we'll meet, we'll do some embodiment practices. We'll do some energy things. We'll work on the nervous system, and I'll show you some subconscious programming things you can start doing to start really getting you in that energy of attraction and magnetism, so you can walk into any dating experience now that you know what you want, with hopefully people who are more aligned, and really call them into your world. And then Friday we'll talk about how to heal when in the context of being in a relationship. You're so welcome, you guys, and I'll send this recording out to you later today. Okay, all right, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye, guys.